So today, we have the opportunity of hearing from Rukiye Abdul-Mutakallim. She is a mother activist inspiration and also working on landscape architecture. The story of the loss of her son has had 44 million plus views, and we circulated an additional 37 million times on YouTube. Her documentary, The Power of Forgiveness, won the 2019 Webby Award. She and her nonprofit, the Muskateer Association, are currently working on a place-based project to promote healing by honoring those wrongfully slayed in our communities, and thus igniting a beacon of hope and goodwill across our city and nation. The proposal is to create stewarded flower pots promoting healing to stand forth as a reminder, bring light and beauty, and unify and honor. And those are memorials for people who have been lost. In addition to running the Muskateer Association, she has been a longtime court-appointed special advocate, Prokids volunteer, spokesperson, and instructor for Islamic affairs for the Crescent Association, disaster relief, second boots on the ground, trained volunteer, IRUSA, advocate coordinator for crime survivors and safety and justice, and is advocate volunteer for the Moms Demand Action. She has lectured at the Arab Academy for Science, Technology, and Maritime Transport in Abukir main campus, director of ISU Islamic Seminary and Understanding, and has had guest appearances on the Tamron Hall Show, USA, and the Mustafa Hosny Show, Khalik Allah in Cairo, Egypt. So that just kind of scratches the surface. I have had the opportunity of knowing Rukiye and working together just for a short time, really, a couple of years. And I want you to have an opportunity now why don't you just introduce yourself in your own words and tell us a little bit about how you even got involved in your work and what drives you to do the things you do. And perhaps you may have particular messages, for the students here as well.
First and foremost, assalam and greetings, salutations to all of you. Alan, you have stepped up and shown out and done such a wonderful job in just honoring many of my own colleagues who have been here speaking to these students, and as well as the fact that you and I met and we have had such a bond that we could have been, we really should be, we are brother and sister in mankind. So let me introduce myself to all your students. My name is Rukiye Abdul-Mutakallim, and I am the CEO and founder of the Muskateer Association. More importantly, I am the mother of one of the fallen in these streets across this nation from a infection, a disease that they have not really reached out and called it this, but they need to. The man-made disease of trauma. Because if you just call it trauma, the world came in trauma. You children, and you are still children, to your parents. And I will say even to me, because all of us are connected, you came in trauma. To have a child is traumatizing, but not a negative trauma. Otherwise, we would not have another child. Not another. A woman would not bear not one more child. But those 9 to 11 months that we are ill and growing up and getting huge, some beautiful gift comes out of us. And we forget all about that trauma because that is not a trauma to harm us. You come with beautiful gifts. All children do. And after that, we bleed for 3 months from it. And yet we have another one, and another one, and another one. And every time we welcome you in our arms. However, this trauma, this disease, this infection, this is something that is done by man, and it does harm. So we have the man-made disease of trauma that we are fighting this war against, because it is a war, and it didn't just start overnight. I won't get so deeply into that right now. I just wanted to introduce the fact that we are dealing with something that can be eradicated because it was done by man himself. And that you are the future. You literally are the future. And you must look at it that way. To take us where we need to be, to save the next generation. And let them reach up and catch that star that you're trying to catch right now. And do amazing things instead of reaching down to pick up weapons to hurt themselves and or others. That no child comes out wanting to do, because a child doesn't come out lying, stealing, cheating, hating. They don't come out wanting to hurt themselves and someone else. They don't. Every child comes out the same way, with light in their eyes, joy in their voice, hope in their hearts, a curious mind, and always reaching up. Every child. And if you don't have any of your own, look at your cousins and nephews and nieces. When they're small, they want joy and they bring joy until someone or something starts suppressing them. And that is the man-made disease of trauma. So in the background, you see my son's picture. He was the inspiration and is still the inspiration of why I was catapulted into this arena. My life, I'll give you a little bit of history about my life. I was born in servitude. Listen to me, young people. I was born in servitude in America. Don't let this face fool you. I am much older than I look. And it's not makeup. I'm very thankful that it's not makeup. I am my heart has been no longer infected with this disease. But I was born in servitude in North Carolina, the seat of the Ku Klux Klan. As a child, I experienced the real horrors of slavery. I saw my family hanging in trees, burned. A schoolmate, or actually playmate, because we were too young to be in school, her father nearly beat to death because the fight against wrongful injustice, to fight for the civil rights, did not start in the 60s. It did not. 2 decades before that, we had to make the decision to stand up and take it no more. And we did it in such a manner that the world had to pay attention. And the civil rights was born. And though I was still young, too young to stand in the line, my sister did and took the beat down. My cousins did. And I was there when they were training them to take that beat down and not say a word. You can never imagine what it's like until you experience it. When you can't scream at them, yell back, fight, and they're throwing feces on you. They're hosing you down. And you saw only the 60s. You didn't see what I saw, where they drug you out of your house. And you heard the words, and I heard these words as a 3-year-old. I've never forgotten it. Nigger, we're going to make an example out of you. We have already hung those down in the holler. You're our niggers. You will do what we tell you to do. And they nearly beat him to death. We had no hospitals. We weren't allowed to have hospitals. We had people in our community who cared for us, who knew the things about the roots to help us heal, to keep us healthy. Yes, that's what I grew up in. And I can promise you right now, to this day, I will never go back there. I will not let one child suffer what I experienced, and my relatives, my ancestors experienced it. I will fight to the last drop of blood to keep us holding on to these civil rights that they are trying to take away from us now. This is enough about my history to know a little bit about who I am. I raised my children with this understanding about what is right to do and what is wrong to do. And my son, Suleiman, decided to move to a neighborhood here in Cincinnati, Ohio, that is very challenged. Even when the sun shines, the people have no hope. You can feel it. It's in the air. They're poorly educated. As a matter of fact, we call it edumentation. They have no desire to go any further than what they can see before their eyes, because their imagination has been stunted. And he wanted to go there just to teach them, to show them that being poor, and I come from poor beginnings, being poor just means being poor. You can clean your streets. You can have a smile for someone. You can say a kind word. You don't have to be harming each other with bad behavior. And one night, 2 years after he moved there, after he elected not to drive a car, to take public transportation, to go to work so the people would see him working every single day, walking. He would stop even when he got off from work. If someone needed a hand, he would help them. And I know this because not more than 10 miles away was our home, and he could have come and stayed with us. Matter of fact, we were doing things together, but he said where he wanted to live. And though I visited him there, as a mother, I was always concerned for his safety. And the first day that I visited him, I actually pulled him aside because I didn't want to embarrass anyone. I asked him, Suleiman, how long do you plan to stay in this neighborhood? I feel nothing good can grow here. And he looked at me with those eyes. And the word Umi means mother. He said, Umi, how better to show them than to be among them, helping them to understand what it means to be kind, what it means to give, even if it's just a smile. You see him in his uniform there, and you say, oh, he was a military man, so he did this and that. No, he elected to go into the service. And when they wanted him to carry a gun, and this is what I mean by people using the right thought in mind, he persuaded the military, and that's a good, you have to be good at talking. He persuaded the military him not to carry a gun, but be on a rescue ship. Because this was the time of war in the Gulf. And he did not want to harm anyone. So he was able to use the art of persuasion and they put him on a rescue ship, and he rescued people out in the Gulf, didn't matter who they were, from the war that had just begun. So I know my son. And he decided to move there. He didn't drink, smoke, didn't do any drugs, none. He didn't hang on the corner, but he really wanted to help the people. And since we weren't too far away, he would call me for different things. People in wheelchairs, people who single parents that couldn't get to the stores, and we'd go shopping. I would help him whenever he called. If I was available, I would help. Because that's who we are. We understood. But that night, on a Sunday, which I shall never forget, I received a call at 1:30 in the morning that my son had been shot. We rushed to the area where he was because it wasn't too far away. Even if it was far away, it didn't matter. I found out that a 14-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 25-year-old that led the boys to doing this crime walked up behind my son, shot him in the back of the head at between 9:30 and 10 at night as he was taking food home to his family. He had never harmed anyone in that community. The favor that I received, and it truly was a favor, my son did not die in that gutter that he fell in. That would have killed me as a mother, because my son was not born in a gutter. And I certainly don't want any of my children or any child to die in a gutter. We rushed to the hospital where they had taken him. He was still alive. It was as if he was still waiting for me. He saw me. I got to kiss the blood-soaked rags around his head. I got to kiss his hand. He got to hear his brother's voice, we called, it was at the Pentagon. So he got to hear his voice, brother's voice. His sister was by my side, and she got to say goodbye to him. And I, as the one who was elected to be the birthing channel for him, got to hold his hand, tell him how much I love him, tell him what an honor it is to be his mother, that I got chosen, because none of us get to choose what family we will be born in, not land, know where we will die. We didn't get to choose the language we speak. We didn't get to choose the eye color. And nor did your parents get to choose you. So truly an honor for me. And I got to say that to him, though he could not speak. And I got to watch his light leave him. As his light came in him as birth, I got to see the light leave him. And what a light, it was beautiful. And I got to say a prayer that we, as Muslims, we look forward to saying this prayer to our loved ones, if given the opportunity when their time comes. And I got to do that for my son, for me, for my family. Though that was a favor, because many, many people do not get to say goodbye. They don't get the opportunity at all. And understanding that also inspired me to find out what really happened. What happened to my son? And wanting to know what happened, not why me and why my son, as they caught the two of the three assailants. And it turned out that they are children, 14-year-old, 6-year-old, baby faces. One very hardened, other one extremely scared because he's never done anything, the 14-year-old, anything of bad. He didn't have a record. The 6-year-old had a record. He'd already been suffering from this man-made disease or trauma long before he stepped up to do this crime. So what happened to him? What happened to the 14-year-old? I had to know. It took 2 years. And in those 2 years, it is when I discovered the man-made disease of trauma. And that is under our power. Now, we only have an hour, and I want you to be able to ask me questions. But know this landscape medicine that you're studying about, you as architects, did I say it right? You're architects, got it, as architects. You right now absolutely have the most golden opportunity to change the landscaping of our society and save these children out here in these streets for the future. That includes the children that you haven't had, but you will have, Lord willing. I don't think any of you are sitting there saying, I really don't want a child. Eventually, you may have that feeling, but at the same time, it's natural to want to have an offspring. It's natural. But you may ask yourself, can you handle it? Or you may ask yourself, is this world worth it? I wouldn't want to bring a child into this society. Well, I promise you, I don't believe any of my ancestors wanted to bring us into servitude. But when we arrived, they didn't reject us. It was the people who had enslaved us that harmed them and harmed us for many decades. So you will eventually want to have a little one. And you must understand that you're painting that landscape for them to either be harmed by the man-made disease of trauma, or we eradicate it and they will never have to worry about that. There'll be other things, but not that. So.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure. You can interrupt, and anyone can ask a question at any time. I just want to make sure you have a clear understanding of why I'm here and why you are here, and I'm honored to be a part of this.
I want to thank you very much, first of all, for sharing that as a whole, and I think it really does relate very directly to a lot of things we've been talking about in this series. And I think you brought up this point just now about acceptance and rejection, and of kind of fellow people and fellow human beings. And I wonder if you can go into that a little bit more, because I think that does really end up creating different kinds of spaces. We can't deny that there's some spaces where there is a lot of that rejection, and it becomes extremely reciprocal rejection that then turns into violence. And then there's also spaces that are really turned into spaces that are more accepting. So can you explain that a little bit more?
In order to understand the man-made disease of trauma, you have to go back to where did it spawn from? And it spawned from how people were treating each other. The man-made disease of trauma can go as far back, let's just stay in America for the time being, 500 years. And when you have a group of people that you have shackled and chained and you truly did whatever horror you could do to them, as well as indigenous people in a land that you are a visitor to. When you have harmed them in this manner, in doing things that that degrade them, humiliate them, which disconnects them from being a family. Let me give you an idea, just one idea. And they don't talk about it much because they like to just talk about the 60s. I'm going to roll you back. Let's step back, all the way back, just a little bit. One. Now imagine yourself. They're treating you like livestock. Actually, they have already stated in writing, as well as in word, that you are less than their horse. So your livestock doesn't even have much of a cost, a value. But they treat you like they treat their mares, their horses, the goats, their sheep, their cattle. And they take the buck, put them in a cage. This is absolute truth. Put them in a cage. Take the females that they call does, or I'll just say does for now. Put two of them in the cage with that buck because they want the female to be impregnated. Why? Because slavery was a commodity, an absolute commodity. And since they already had your females, they might as well go ahead and produce them like they produce rabbits. They watched them completely naked, performing sexual acts like you go and visit someone in the zoo, the animals that you visit in the zoo. That's how they were treated. That's how my ancestors were treated. And then when the female was pregnated, she was then ripped away from the buck. He no longer had any contact with her. And she gave birth. And when she finished giving birth, they ripped the child away from her and moved and sold it. Once it was strong enough, sold it to another plantation owner so that there would never be a family. And you imagine this was done year after year after year. What have you put inside that human being? What have you made them begin to think? What are they? But cattle. So a family being really grown there? No, that is the first infection that was started from a people who they didn't come into that existence. They were drugged from a land where they had family, they had connection, and now no longer that. And if you think that doesn't carry on, then you aren't understanding what traumatization is. You're not understanding why the ACE test is the way it is. And you need to understand that as architects, you need to understand it. Why? Because when you grow up around flowers and people doing things to grow food and grow things and smile and colors and things that are very uplifting, you automatically start becoming one people because it's in our nature to be like the ecosystem. We are the flower garden of mankind. And the ecosystem shows us how the Creator created it and us to be the same. That's why we have to rely on them. And they have some reliance on us. Well, we have more reliance on them. So what I'm saying to you is that a situation can make the difference of whether a person will go and reach for the universe to catch their star, or they will reach down pick up a weapon to hurt themselves and others. It's in our hands to do the right thing. I'm just praying that many of you are our future. You are. And the moment you have a child, that's the next future, that you are getting it. And you will help us save the 3 B's, babies, butterflies, and bees. Without them, mankind has no future. And you are a part of that future. So how you design the landscaping will help tremendously in eradicating it.
I want to interrupt you again. I mean, I thank you so much.
No, feel free. Feel free. It's okay.
So, and other people probably have questions as well. So I want to give them a chance as well. But thinking, how can you also go into a little bit more detail, I guess, in 2 things, and you can do at the same time or just address one. But first of all, in terms of agricultural mindset, you know, how do some people get into the agricultural mindset of thinking about people as animals? I mean, first of all, like, how is it because of hurt people? You know, is it because of this kind of like, you know, it's like a chain reaction of trauma and isolation and even maybe dehumanizing themselves? Or what is the
how did we get to this point where we have, well,
yeah, and then how do we heal that also? You know, because there are no doubt some people who still treat others as if they are, you know, a commodity. And I'm wondering, first of all, I don't understand what the incentive is for that. You know, what are they trying to get out of that? Where do they get out of that? And then also, how can we turn that around? You know, how can we, is it possible by embracing, you know, some humanity on that, even in a person like that, or what?
All right. Understanding the innate laws are very important. And if you don't understand the innate laws, which we used to teach about in this country, but no longer do, except maybe at a private professional educational center, which is wrong. The innate laws were put here long before we were put on this earth, so that we could live in harmony with all of creation. If it's no longer being taught, then they're teaching you something else. And they're teaching you, now remember, they're teaching you this, that you may be better than someone else because of, right? But remember this, the innate laws are here. Children come with the sense of innate laws. They still have to be taught because children are a blank slate. They only have 5 beautiful things that they don't know about, but is in them. And for those who doubt this, take a moment and look at your family if you have young ones. If you have a chance to look at a young child coming up. I said it before and I'll say it again. All children have 5 beautiful things. They are innately given to them. You didn't put it in them. They already come with that. They come in with a light in their eyes, joy in their voices. They love to laugh. Oh my gosh. Hope in their heart, a curious mind. And they're always reaching up, always. And they're trying to grab something, always. You can have toys around them, their toys, whatever. And the moment they get kind of like, oh yeah, this, but they look up and they see something and they don't even push it away. They just try to get themselves up and they figure out how to do that, especially when you're not around, and climb up to whatever it is has got their attention because they're always reaching up. Now, how do we stop? How do a child who comes with all of this start now hating somebody because of their color, because of their hair, because of their facial structure, or the fact that they're a male versus a female, because they don't even know that until you're starting to teach them the difference between the two. They see something and they're like, what is that? It is a taught behavior to be hateful. A child does not come out hating. They don't come out hating, lying, stealing, cheating.
Killing.
These are all learned behaviors. And some way along the line, and actually with Europe, I can take you all the way back to their history and show where they started harming themselves and others. And they continue to pass that on. The greed of man is there in his nature to be greedy. And there's something he wants and he's going to do it. But what keeps us, those who from doing this?
So is it greed then? Is it greed then? Is that essentially where you're saying is
No, it's called
Yeah.
arrogance. I can take you right to the word arrogance. And because of arrogance, because we want to be the one, we want to always be the most important, this is part of our nature, to be the one that says, oh, teacher, pick me, pick me, pick me. And then after a while, the teacher's not picking you because he's trying, or she, to be fair to the others and wanting the others to speak up. That other person, maybe from what is happening in their own household, because they're being bullied in their home by a narcissist. And so it is part of what I also want you to understand in this lecture, that violence, racism, fascism, that all starts first in the home. It all starts there. So we have to understand not becoming jealous is part of our nature. So we have to fight that jealousy. It's part of our nature to want to be the number one. It is part of our nature. But we can't be number one at the cost of someone else's expense. We can't be the kind of people that say, I got mine. Too bad, you get yours. Or the thing that like to say, finders keepers, losers weepers. No. Because if we do this, then look at what our society has become. And very much I could be, and have every right to be, very hateful against every color lighter than me, especially white. But I made a choice after understanding, after education, not education, why I should never be that way. And that if I want a future for my family and all the children of my family, then I must learn the truth of what really happened. Where did it come from? And how to eradicate it, because it can be eradicated. It's a man-made disease. Our CDC, and then I'll let you guys ask questions, but our CDC, yes, we're calling them out. They need to call this a man-made disease. It has taken more lives than COVID. And COVID's only been with us for 2 years. That we've acknowledged, that is. Yet it's taken more lives than COVID in the last 2 years. Yet they will not give you those numbers in your face like they do with COVID. Why? If you're feathering your nest off the misery of the people, does it behoove you to acknowledge that? And is that wrong, that they feather their nest off the misery of the people and have made the children the buffet that they're eating off of? Of course it's wrong. And our landscaping of these challenged neighborhoods and showing how we can stop this is the only way that and it's really the only way that we can show them how wrong they are. because those are children who have been traumatized.
So I want to thank you for that, and I want to have an opportunity to show the project that you're talking about when you talk about landscaping. At least one of the projects you're talking
Yes,
about.
just one. We've got a lot, everyone.
You have a lot, and you've been distributing food. You've been working with vulnerable people in the community in multiple different levels. But I want to at least share this because this is an example of a flower pot. But can you tell us how what is this an example of, and how does this represent one way to address this disease of trauma that is rampant in different locations across the country and world?
Now, number one, first of all, we make no condemnation against any of those who have fallen out here in these streets for whatever reason, whether they're the ones who have did the harm or the ones that got harmed. We make no judgmentation on this because every child, remember the innate law, every one of them came into this world with those 5 gifts. So you have to ask what happened to them. So we took ancient technology, and you're like, technology? Flower pot? Yes! Flowers don't come in a pot. They didn't start out in front of your house. Yeah, I'm glad someone is getting that. It was, at its time, technology. So we took the ancient technology of flower pot, married it with the latest technology, the QR code. And we called it the fallen and designed it in such a manner that the person who has fallen in these streets, they're no longer having these impromptu shrines that for maybe 1 or 2 days or 1 or 2 weeks, everybody's going, yes, oh, and then it turns into a blight in the neighborhood. It's got candles that no longer light, teddy bears that's been from the weather, and they're now smelling even from the rain, and it's got whiskey bottles or things all around it. It no longer is honoring that life that came in. It came in light and it leaves in light.
So this is a formal and permanent installation at the site of
where they've
obviously
fallen. Yes, they have fallen.
This photograph is not that site. I should let everybody know.
No.
But,
we had to put something together so that we could at least give the people that are in charge. And I'm not going to go there. You can imagine who in charge is, so that they could understand that what they've been doing for the last 60 years is not stopping this man-made disease. The bodies are still piling up of the children.
This is a pretty radical approach that you're proposing. First of all, it's rather than condemnation and blame and kind of just put it off, you're really saying families, the community is going to start taking ownership at these sites, right?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. So sponsors, first the child's name is put on there, and those of you who have QR readers on your phone, your professor or soon to be a professor is he can do a printout, or he can make it so that you can just click the pot, and the sponsors on the pot will also be in the QR code. So what it does is it tells you the story of the person that's fallen. You don't know. And there are stories that were done by the news, and then there were eulogies that were written for that person. We also, in this flower pot with the QR code, we can carry up to 5 pictures of the person that's fallen to give you an idea who they were. Also, with this, there are locators. The flower pots have locators on them. And we got a $150 billion business industry, not just a business, industry in America called human trafficking. Now they put a nice little picture on it, a sound to it, but it's slavery. It is also sex trafficking, and the children are the buffet that they are eating off of. They're kidnapping them, not off the highways, but in our own communities. And when you get a Amber Alert, do you know where to start? You don't. But with that pot, in the very neighborhoods that they are kidnapping the children, and they will be in those neighborhoods where all those have fallen, the police get to start right there. And you have bought that child 24 more hours to be found and saved and not be in that industry.
Okay, I thank you again, and we only have 5 more minutes, so I want to give a couple people.
I'm sorry, everyone. It is also a self-watering pot. It's also a self-watering pot, and it's also about the pollinators. So now you can go ahead.
Okay,
Sorry.
let's take maybe 1 or 2 questions.
You said you're from North Carolina.
Yes.
We're talking about your siblings or cousins learning to like resist the to protest non-violently.
Yes.
Were you talking about some of the lunch counter sit-ins?
Indeed, what you saw. Now, Alan, could you unshare and let me see her face, or at least see their faces? I appreciate that.
And my thought that, yeah, you might know.
Yes. What you saw, or what you get a snippet of in this period of them dumbing you down, and they have been doing it for too long, actually, too long. Yes, it was to make it where we could sit at those counters and take it. So let me give you an idea. As a little girl in North Carolina, my mother, we weren't, sorry, it does still touch me. It was on the books as law. We could not be on the same sidewalk with a white person. If we were on the same sidewalk with them, within eye distance, we saw them, we had to get off the sidewalk and wait until they passed by before we could get back on the sidewalk again. Otherwise, they had the right to beat us down, have us locked up for violating their law. The thing that you saw about not to have the 2 different drinking fountains, real. Only they didn't use the word color. It was nigger or coon. And if you even were at that fountain to drink and it was right next to their fountain, you had to wait till they finished. You couldn't get a drink. We were not allowed to use any of they didn't have many, by the way, public bathrooms. That wasn't like that then as it is now. But we weren't allowed to use them at all. So I was a little girl, and this was Crest 5 and Dime. And it so happened we were on the sidewalk with a white person. My mother backed us into the street. And we had to wait. They took their time and they went inside. We tried to enter in the same door because there was only one door that we knew of, because we had come from far away. They stopped us and told us we had to go around to the back and wait until someone came to the door to let us in. And the evil of it all is they were just very mean. So we stood for hours waiting. My mother had to get something out of there. because there were not many stores. But as a child, it was already imprinted on me from that beating I saw. And yes, my uncles, my aunts came back from the war and they would take it no more. And when you say, did blacks, women work in the war? Yes, we did. Who do you think emptied the bedpans and scrubbed down those hospitals? Who do you think did that? Who? With little or no pay. So when they started fighting back, they were in back rooms, in basements, teaching the next generation how to take the beat down, because we'll take it no more. We are human. When they saved the life of a white person in the war, and then that same white person ignores them to this day, or to that day period, because now you're back in America and you're back in this land of servitude. They're not allowed to like a nigger, or you become a nigger lover. Now, I hate that word nigger, and I don't use it. But because we are in this class, and I have to tell you the truth, you need to hear it. It is not a proud word. It has no honor to it whatsoever. And not one black person should ever use it in their mouth, ever. Ever. But yes, you had to learn to take that beat down. You don't think they just sat at that counter and were ready to go. No, it was a training. Because I tell you, if I were to take any of you now and go there, how many of you could stay there at that counter and let someone pee on you? Throw feces in your face. But if we had not done that and sacrificed our lives, you would not even have the dog rights you have today. And that is the absolute truth.
I want to thank you very much, and maybe we can have a round of applause.
I'm sorry we didn't have enough time for more questions.
I will send everybody your contacts and more information on the project. And thank you very much for coming today. I have to, we're out of time. But thank you.
I pray that
Thank you.
everyone enjoyed the lecture.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And feel free, he has a connection there. You can reach out to me for more questions. I would be honored. But
Right.
you are our future. I'm looking forward to all of you coming up with some wonderful things to eradicate the man-made disease of trauma and save the 3 Bs: babies, butterflies, and bees. We need them. We have no future without them. My salama. Alan, do you want me to stay on?
We have to close up.
You want to call me then?